My name is Daniel Torrez, from the great state of Arizona, born and raised. And I think my story began right out of high school. Um, I'm a Army veteran, 21 years as a military police officer. When I joined the Army while my dad was sick with cancer while I was in high school. My dad passed away about 3 weeks uh, before I was supposed to head to Fort McClellan, Alabama for basic training and MP training. And I just never processed that death. I never grieved, and I just kind of tucked those emotions away because I was going off to be all I can be in the Army. So I did, and again I was training to be an MP. Training wasn't really an issue with me. I was 18 and and ready to go save the world. And I just remember early on training, they told us, hey, you got to suck it up. You want to be a good soldier. And then to be a good MP, you got to have thick skin. You can't show emotion, and you can't let things get to you. And that really stuck with me. And because I was already, hiding or suppressing my emotions about my dad's death. So that set my trajectory. I finished training, go to my first duty station, and I'm just out doing it, MP stuff, on patrol and seeing things, responding to emergencies, traffic accidents, death, whatnot. And it just never really affected me because I think I became so desensitized to sharing or showing emotions that it just set my trajectory. And that was good for about 3 months. Saw some bad incidents that I had to respond to. And by this point, I'm 19, a young MP trying to do the best I can. But I was angry. I was fighting with people. I was drinking, and I was doing high risk behaviors, just not really working out. And I figured I needed to go to somebody and get some answers. And this was the mid 80s. A lot of my leadership were Vietnam vets. There was no sensing sessions or anything like that. But I was born and raised Roman Catholic, so I said, well, who's going to help me better than a chaplain? So I go to the chaplain at our battalion at Fort Hood, pour out my heart to him, tell him about my dad, say, I just need some guidance, as somebody to help correct this situation I'm in. So he gives me a pamphlet and says, read this pamphlet. If you got any questions, come back. I said, wow, that didn't go with the way I expected. So I throw the pamphlet away, go back to doing what I'm doing. Another 3-4 months go by, and same thing. I'm like, man, I got to figure this out. So I go back to the chaplain, and same thing, but this time at least he gives me a hardcover book, like how to grieve the loss of a loved one. And he's like, read this book, and if you have questions, come back. So again, didn't go the way I wanted. I was reaching out for help, guidance, comfort, whatever. And somebody I trusted, a Catholic priest, a chaplain, and so I throw that book away, and that set my trajectory there. And it wasn't for decades later until I figured out that yeah, I've been through some stuff, I saw some stuff, and I need to process my dad's death, which I just had never done. So fast forward 21 years in the Army with a 7-year break in service. And during that break in service, I was public safety. I was a federal law enforcement officer for a while. And, just continued doing stuff. And then you have those life stressors, marriage, divorce, kids, run-ins with the law because of drinking, things like that. And I ended up finally retiring, coming back home to Arizona. And I still currently work for the Department of Corrections. And I had a grant-funded position. The money went away. And there was just some poor leadership behind the decision. And that's what set me on my downward spiral. And I had already been sharing my story a little bit in like webinar or conference format, talking about, cumulative trauma and, unresolved grief. And I just hit a bad spot and I was in a downward spiral. So I finally had to reach down, grab myself by the bootstraps and say, you've been in worse places. So once I did that with the support of my lovely wife, I reached out finally for a mental health support. So I started seeing a licensed clinical social worker, and I was diagnosed with PTSD and some other stuff because of a lot of the things that I had experienced. And part of it was beginning with my dad's death. So once I got the diagnosis, I was okay. Well, how do we fix this? How do we right the ship? And I also reached out and found some, I guess you could call them online support groups for veterans and first responders. And on one of those, I met Kerry Stewart, the guru, and he mentioned this Warriors Ascent program that he's a part of. And at this point, I was already seeking that support that I had not sought in decades. And I said, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm all in. And that's what I do. I immerse myself in what I need to do. So I looked up the program, Warriors Ascent. Went to the website. I had a lovely chat with my lovely wife, and I said, it's a week long. I'm gonna have to take leave from work, and I want to go do this. And so she supported me. So that is how I came to find Warriors Ascent Academy of Healing, and I applied and was accepted. And that's pretty much how I came to be involved with the Warriors Ascent Academy of Healing. I like to do a recon. So I actually left earlier. I got there Saturday, got a room at the same hotel that they were going to house us at. So I got there a day early just so I could decompress, so I could be present. I didn't want to feel rushed or anything, so I got there a day early, went and did some sightseeing, and just got my mind right. Did my recons of the location, even though I knew we were going to get a ride. When I saw some people at the hotel, and you just looking, I was like, hey, I wonder if they're here for the same program. And, so we get to Sunday, which is the day where people start connecting because they're going to, we'll all be staying, out-of-staters will be staying at the hotel and then being transported to the facility. So they finally get a hold of everybody, and we all meet in the lobby on Sunday night. And it's just like anything. We're all sitting there, and I will speak for myself. And you're just looking, saying, well, I wonder what they do, why they're here, this, and that. And I immediately had to say, it doesn't matter. And this is one of the things I learned from Kerry, is that we don't need to do that social comparison. I had been doing that my whole career, comparing myself to others. And I said, just be Daniel. So we met, we shook hands, some people hugged it out. They explained to us the timeline of being picked up on Monday and being taken out to the facility. But since I got there early, I had a rental car, so I had to go return that to the airport. But I had people saying, well, hey man, we'll follow you and we'll bring you to the. I said, no, I said, it's cool, you guys. I don't want to disrupt anything. Again, because it's hard to accept help. So yeah, I went, turned my rental car in, got a Lyft or an Uber, I can't remember, and showed up. And of course, it starts raining on that Monday morning. When I get there, of course, early enough, because I like to be early, because if you're on time, you're late. So I get there, we get into the main training area, that lodge. And I just felt so much love and support from anybody that I came in contact with from your staff. Just they knew my name, they called me my name, and they just, have a seat, take a load off, wait for everybody to get here, then we'll get started. So from the very minute that I met anybody from the academy, which was at the hotel, I just felt, respected. I felt loved and I felt supported, and that carried through and actually grew throughout the week. And of course, again, we get there and nobody knows what's going on. Although we've seen videos or, maybe knew somebody that had attended before, I think all of us there were a little bit nervous, uneasy. But again, the warmth that we felt from the staff was amazing, and it put me at ease right away. Um, because I fear change, and I'm kind of anticipating what we're going to go through. But the warmth, the love, respect, and support that I felt was amazing. And then we start our days, uh, up early, three of us to a room, and of course, it's like that bar joke. You got a white sheriff, a black Army veteran, and a Hispanic Army veteran all staying in the same room, and but we're all like, hey, introduced ourselves, told a little bit about ourselves, with my two bunk mates, and I think we were all invested in the program, and by the end of the week, we were all invested in ourselves, and that's a testament to the staff, to the program, the different events and exercises that we did, and I just felt again respected. I felt heard, and I felt warmth and support from all the staff there at the Academy of Healing. I'll say one of the main things was accepting myself for me, and I don't know, I think it was the letting go ceremony where we wrote a letter either to ourselves, to somebody we hurt, or somebody that hurt us, and I wrote a letter to myself, and I was able to say that I needed to kind of let go of the whole Ranger Torrez, because again, I was a military police officer for my entire career in the Army, but as a young corporal at Fort Bragg, um, I was able to attend and graduate Ranger School, and it wasn't very common back in the day. Of course, now Ranger School is open up to everybody, but that's a whole other story. Um, so yeah, I had to kind of, because I had been carrying around this, Ranger Torres moniker for decades. Because once I graduated Ranger School in my MP battalion, as a young corporal, I didn't have any rank. I just became Ranger Torres, and Ranger Torres was Ranger Torres. So in that little letting go ceremony, I had to acknowledge that it's okay to just be Daniel, and just understanding and accepting me for me. That Ranger Torres isn't who I am, but Ranger Torres is a part of who I am. So I think that is one of the main things, is just being able to let go of that facade of I got this, I'm good, I'm so and so, I'm this, and being able to accept yourself. So I think that was the main thing um, that I learned. Then that carried over into the self-care portion of the training that we learned. It is being able to take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, how can you take care of others? So I really learned that, and putting myself first, which is okay, and that's a big hurdle for a lot of us in the first responder, military veteran arena. And again, accepting myself for who I am. The breath work that I learned has really helped me. I think the breath work / mindfulness, because I'm able to be present where I'm at and concentrate on my breath work, which is very soothing to me, and allows me to kind of just push through anything that I'm facing in the day, whether it's work related or personal related. Um, the healthy boundaries, establishing healthy boundaries both at work and personally, is really something I took away that has helped me, especially at work. Again, because having that Ranger Torres mentality, it was like, okay, I got it. You need something else, I'll do it, and I'm always ready to help others, and not being able to accept help because I don't want to show any weakness or anything like that. So I'm able to set better boundaries at work by actually telling my boss, you got me doing these 3 projects, I can't do these 3 over here. Being able to better prioritize and explain how I prioritize those things to my boss, so that he understands that I'm not, some sluggo not able to do my job. It's just like, I have so many things going on, I'm prioritizing. If you agree with that, great. If not, I'll adjust. So being able to set those better boundaries at work professionally has really helped. It's lowered my stress quite a bit. And those personal boundaries at home, with my lovely wife, and she's a mental health professional. So she gets it, she understands, and we're both doing our own thing as Daniel and Melissa, versus we always got to be together. We always got to do stuff together. It's okay to take care of ourselves, and then, so I think the healthy boundaries is definitely helping at work and at home. Overcoming limiting beliefs was another section that we learned, and that's just that negative self-talk is what I call it. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I can't ask for help because I don't want to appear weak or dumb because I don't understand something, technology or whatever it is. So overcoming those limiting beliefs or the negative self-talk, I think, is really beneficial for me. And one of the main things too is being able to allow myself to be vulnerable. And we had the circle of sharing, and you got 18 warriors sitting in a circle, um, all strangers. For the most part, all were strangers, and they allowed us to be as vulnerable and share as much as we wanted. And when you sit there and you see these warriors, and some of us broke down and cried, and allowing myself to be vulnerable like that, I hadn't done it in person in a group setting. I had done it on these support groups online. Kind of shared my story and got a little teary eyed, or the fast blink. Um, but sitting in that room or the circle of sharing with 17 other warriors, and sharing our story, and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, it has went a long way with me, because I realized that my vulnerability is actually my strength, and that strength is what's helping me in my resilience to overcoming the situation I'm in. And by situation, I mean my PTSD diagnosis and other things. Because that vulnerability also led me to be able to seek that mental health support, and that's what I'm calling it now. Like, even during my presentation, because those of us in the military, veteran, first responder arena, a lot of times it's hard for us to ask for help. So I frame it now, the tools I learned, that we're just seeking support. Support from one another, support from awesome staff and programs like the Academy of Healing. And if that's all we have to do is reframe the way we look at things, but more importantly, we reframe the way we look at ourselves, allow ourselves to be vulnerable, I think that's been very beneficial for me. I think I'm we'll say, good example of that mentality of, I got this, I'm good, because that's what we do. Like I said, once I graduated Ranger School as a young corporal and became Ranger Torrez, I was always not worried. I was always taking care of others, taking care of my soldiers, making sure, anything we went or did, even if it was just a training exercise, that they were good to go. And I never felt that I was not taking care of myself, but I had that mentality of, well, I'm Ranger Torrez, I'm good. Let me make sure they're good to go and squared away. So I think if you're out there and you're suffering, you've been diagnosed, or again, it's asking for that support. It's hard, believe me, I know it's hard, but I had to understand and lose that facade of Ranger Torrez. Like I said, it's not who I am, but that is a part of me. And I just ask that you take a step back and look at yourself, your whole self, and understand that your job, your training, your certifications, your tabs, whatever they may be, yeah, that's great. It's a great accomplishment. You should be proud of that. But that shouldn't be the driving force. The driving force should be, how am I going to take care of myself so that part of me, Ranger Torrez or whatever it is, can learn and grow. Because of all the things that we have seen and done, we have to seek that support. So I think being able to take a step back, allow yourself to be vulnerable, and again, vulnerability for me equals strength, which enables my resiliency to continue to move forward and to continue to apply the things I learned as Ranger Torrez but also applying the things that I learned in the Academy of Healing as Daniel. So when you can couple those together, all that background and experience with being able to open up and be vulnerable in front of other warriors, it's a life-changing and life-saving experience, and I am better for it and able to share my story and be vulnerable, which is able to help me in my resiliency and moving forward. So take a step back, do that jump check, make sure that your everything's good to go, squared away, taped up, tied down, and then take that step forward. Allow yourself to be vulnerable and understand that you are not going through this alone. And I felt like that for many, many years. That either I got this or my story's not as bad as sensational as some of these other stories out there. And I tell people, I wasn't the tip of the spear, but I was still part of the spear. And moving forward, again, understanding your background and experience, but also being able to learn, be open, vulnerable, and understand that there's others that are going through similar things. I tell people we're the same but different, and we're different but similar. And I think vulnerability is one of the main things that helped me uh, move forward in my path.